And we are live.
Yay! Um,
All right.
Not to ruin your eyes or anything, but I am not wearing the hat that I normally wear, just because this hat was in the Bahamas and this shirt is in the Bahamas. The hat's from my son, the shirt's from my wife. Uh, Funny thing, she's like, "I got you a shirt." I'm like, "Well, did it say that my wife went to the Bahamas and all she brought me back was this stupid shirt?" And she said, "No." I said, "Okay." But I'm glad they're back. I feel a whole lot better. Uh,
Good.
I am old new dude. He is.
Richard York, Asher's newborn son.
And Chris the Crow says, back on the wall, fresh off the Blackbird at my post. Well, Chris, anytime that someone deserts their post at the wall, I think they should be frozen in the wall where they can't leave again. But I'm glad you had fun.
All right, shall we do it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Storm 64, John 8. The wall is yours. He dreamt he was back in Winterfell, limping past the Stone Kings on their thrones. Their he's limping, so his injury is here. Unlike when Jamie has his dream underneath Castle Rock.
Yep.
Their gray granite eyes turned to follow him as he passed, and their gray granite fingers tightened on the hilts of rusted swords upon their laps. You are no Stark, he could hear them mutter in heavy granite voices. There is no place for you here. Go away. He walked deeper into the darkness. Father, he called. Bran? Rickon? No one answered. A chill wind was blowing on his neck. Uncle? He called. Uncle Benjamin. Father. Please, Father, help me. Up above, he heard drums. They are feasting in the great hall, but I am not welcome there. I am no Stark, and this is not my place. So Jamie is a bastard that his father wants to inherit, while his brother is trueborn, at least partially. He dreams this is your place under Castle Rock. John is trueborn, and his father wants his bastard brother to inherit. You know nothing, John Stark. See Triple Targaryens episodes 5 and 2.
Now, is this kind of a Freudian slip? I can't pronounce that word. In the dream, they're saying you don't belong because he himself thinks that he doesn't belong.
No, so the whole theme of this, and I think I made a note of this, but somewhere here. But the whole theme of almost on time says eccentric excellent. The whole theme of this chapter is basically that John doesn't think he belongs in charge, and that he does, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't think he belongs in Winterfell, and he does, right?
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yep. His crutch slipped. He fell to his knees. The crypts were growing darker. A light has gone out somewhere. Egret, he whispered. Forgive me, please. It was only a direwolf, gray and ghastly, spotted with blood, his golden eyes shining sadly through the dark. So that makes it almost sound like maybe Bran is the one who's responsible for this dream.
Possibly a light has gone out somewhere. Does that kind of remind you of Danny's dream or visions in the?
Oh, because he doesn't actually get. He's the one that doesn't find out. No, he's already been told about. Has he been told about the Red Wedding yet?
I don't think so.
No, he hasn't been told about the Red Wedding. Maybe the light going out represents Rob.
Yeah,
Rob.
it's true.
Oh, so maybe that's Greyland in the dream. Oh,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It was great.
yeah, that makes more sense now I think about it. He should also get a dream about the Red Wedding, and he just doesn't figure out what it is. Yeah, that would make sense. Lady Thistle, it's his own fears and shadows, and he ordered fully self-actualize or something. John Sky Starker.
I know.
Did we already read the? Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. So was dark. The bed hard. His own bed, he remembered. His own bed in his steward's cell beneath the old bear's chambers. By rights, it should have brought him sweeter dreams. Even beneath the furs, he was cold. Ghost had shared his cell before the rain being warmed against the chill of night. And in the wild, Egret had slept beside him. Both gone now. He had burned Egret himself. He knew she was. Ghost, where are you? Was he dead as well? Is that what his dream had meant? The bloody wolf crypts? Wrong wolf. But as I said, it means you're the rightful heir, the Wolf of Winterfell. You can try to refuse, but it's no good. It's kind of the theme of this chapter. But the wolf in the dream had been gray, not white. Gray like Bran's wolf. Had the fence hunted him down and killed him after Queen's Crown? If so, Bran was lost to him for good and all. I'm trying to make sense of that horn blue.
Oh, I mean, that's John. I mean, accepting that the ward lives on in
Yeah,
there.
he thought he's already mentioned that in his previous chapter that he thought that maybe Bran would live on.
Okay. Yeah, how bad memory is.
He speculated that in the previous chapter. I'm pretty sure. John was trying to make sense of that when the horn blew. Horn of Winter, he thought, still confused from sleep. The man's never found Jormungand's horn, so that couldn't be. The second blast followed, as long and deep as the first. John had to get up and go to the wall. He knew. So hard. He shoved aside his furs and sat. The pain in his legs seemed duller. Nothing he could not stand. It's an interesting choice of words there. Nothing he could not stand. Anyway, you're referring to a leg. It's kind of strange. Anyway, he had slept in his breeches and tunic and small clothes with the added warmth. So he had only to pull on his boots and don leather and mail and cloak. The horn blew again, 2 long blasts. So he slung Longclaw over one shoulder, found his crutch, and hobbled down the steps. It's the black of night outside, bitter, cold, and overcast. Lady Thistle says, "Give me that direct connection between the horn of winter and the crypts."
I like that.
His brothers were spilling out of towers and keeps, buckling their sword belts, walking toward the wall. John looked for Pip and Gren, but could not find them. Perhaps one of them was the sentry blowing the horn. It is Mance, he thought. It's come at last. That was good. We'll fight a battle and then we'll rest. Alive or dead, we'll rest. You know nothing, Jon Snow. Ed is implied death may not guarantee rest, and Eldred Stoneskin has a great video on that idea. Where the stair had been, only an immense tangle of charred wood and broken ice remained below the wall. The winch raised them up now. The cage was only big enough for 10 men at a time. It was already on its way up by the time John arrived. He would need to wait for its return. Others waited with him. Satin, Ollie, Spare Boot, Kegs, Big Blonde Harith with his buck teeth. Everyone called him Horse. He had been a stable hand in Molestown, one of the few moles who had stayed at Castle Black. The rest had run back to their fields and hovels, or their beds in the underground brothel. Horse wanted to take the Black, though, the great buck-toothed fool. They remained as well, the horror who proved so handy with the crossing. Roy had kept 3 orphan boys whose father had died on the steps. They were young, 9 and 8 and 5, but no one else seemed to want them. As they waited for the cage to come back, Clytus brought them cups of hot mulled wine, while Finger Hob passed out chunks of black bread. John took a heel from him and nodded. "Is it Mance Rayder?" Satin asked anxiously. "We can hope so. There are worse things than wildlings in the dark." John remembered the words the Wildling King had spoken on the first night of that pink snow. A dead walk, walls, stakes, and swords mean nothing. You cannot fight the dead, Jon Snow. No man knows that half so well as me. Thinking of it made the wind seem a little colder.
Hey, why would walls I mean, regular walls, of course, but the wall itself still means something to the undead.
Right. It is strange that he said that he uses the term walls. Maybe he was already planning on bluffing with and aware that John may not, be on his side for the whole thing. And
well, he says it at the fence of the first men, though, right? So maybe just referring to the ring wall at the fence.
Yeah, that could be. That could be. He's literally talking about what he sees around them is where they actually. Yeah, that makes sense actually.
Yeah, the gears work that through to figure out that's what.
No, you're right. That makes sense. Given the context of where they were. Finally, the cage came clanking back down, swaying at the end of the long chain, and they crowded in silently and shut the door. Of course, it could also be George hinting that the others won't have any problem getting past the wall.
Yeah.
Molly yanked the bell rope 3 times. A moment later, they began to rise by fits and starts at first, then more smoothly. Well, that's kind of ominous, isn't it? Anyway, no one spoke. At the top, the cage swung sideways, and they clambered out one by one. Horse gave John a hand down onto the ice. Cold hit him in the teeth like a fist. A line of fires burned along the top of the wall, contained in iron baskets on poles taller than a man. Cold knife of the wind stirred and swirled the flames, so the lurid orange light was always shooting. Bundles of quarrels, arrows, spears, and scorpion bolts stood ready on every hand. Rocks were piled 10 feet high. Big wooden barrels of pitch and lamp oil lined up beside them. Bowen Marsh had left Castle Black well supplied in everything save men. The wind was whipping at the black cloaks of the scarecrow sentinels who stood along the ramparts, spears in hand. I hope it wasn't one of them, blew the horn, John said to Donald Lloyd, limped up beside him. Did you hear that? Lloyd asked. There was the wind, and horses, and something else. A mammoth, John said. That was a mammoth. Farmer's breath was frosty and blew from his broad, flat nose. North of the wall was a sea of darkness that seemed to stretch forever. John could make out the faint red glimmer of distant fires moving through the wood. It was man's certain sunrise. The others did not light the torches. How do we fight them if we can't see them? Morse asked. Donald Lloyd turned toward two great trebuchets that Bowen Marsh had restored to working order. Give me light, he roared. And the Nautilord said, give me light. He saw that it was good. Barrels of pitch were loaded hastily into the slings and set afire with a torch. The wind fanned the flames to a brisk red fury. Now, Lloyd bellowed. Counterweights plunged downward. The throwing arms rose to thud against the padded crossbars. The burning pitch went tumbling through the darkness, casting an eerie, flickering light upon the ground below. John caught a glimpse of mammoths moving ponderously through the half-light, just as quickly lost them again. A dozen, maybe more. The barrel struck the earth and burst. He heard bass trumpeting. The giant roared something in the old tongue, his voice of ancient thunder that sent shivers up John's spine. Again, the voice shouted. The trebuchets were loaded once more. 2 more barrels of burning pitch went crackling through the gloom to come crashing down amongst the foe. This time one of them struck a dead tree, enveloping it in flame. Not a dozen mammoths, John saw. 100. He stepped to the edge of the precipice. Careful, he reminded himself. It's a long way down. Red Allen sounded his sentry's horn once more. Ahoo! Ahoo!
That's my new ringtone.
Sammy's getting this. I know that's not long enough, but Sammy's already freaking out from that. Anyway. And now the wildlings answered, not with one horn, but with a dozen, and with drums and pipes as well. We are come, they seemed to say. We are come to break your wall, to take your lands and steal your daughters. The wind howled. Trebuchets creaked and thumped. Barrels flew. Behind the giants and the mammoths, John saw men advancing on the wall with bows and axes. Were there 20 or 20,000? In the dark, there was no way to tell. It's a battle of blind men, but Vance has a few thousand more of them than we do. A few? The gate! Pip cried out. They're at the gate! The wall was too big to be stormed by any conventional means. Too high for ladders or siege towers. Too thick for battering rams. No catapult could throw a stone large enough to breach it. If you tried to set it on fire, the ice melt would quench the flames. You could climb over as the raiders did near Greyguard, but only if you were strong and fit and sure-handed. Even then, you might end up like Jarl, impaled on a tree. You must take the gate, or they cannot pass. But the gate was a crooked tunnel through the ice, smaller than any castle gate in the Seven Kingdoms, so narrow that rangers must lead their garrons through single file. 3 iron grates closed the inner passage, each locked and chained, protected by a murder hole. The outer door was oak, 9 inches thick and studded with iron, not easy to break through. But Mance has mammoths here by himself, and giants as well. Must be cold down there, said Boy. What say we warm them up, lads? A dozen jars of lamp oil had been lined up on the precipice. Pip ran down the line with a torch, setting them alight. Owen the Oaf followed, shoving them over the edge one by one. Tongues of pale yellow fire swirled around the jars as they plunged downward. When the last was gone, Ren kicked loose the chocks on a barrel of pitch and sent it rumbling and rolling over the edge as well. The sounds below changed to shouts and screams, sweet music to their ears. Yet still the drums beat on. Trebuchets shuddered and thumped, and the sound of skin pipes came wafting through the night like the songs of strange, fierce birds. Septon Celador began to sing as well, his voice tremulous and thick with wine. Gentle Mother, font of mercy, save our sons from war, we pray. Stay the swords and stay the arrows. Sorry, I lost it for a second there. Gotta scroll back down. Let them know. Donald rounded on him. Any man here stays his sword, I'll chuck his puckered arse right off this wall, starting with you, Septon. Archers! Do we have any bloody archers? Here, said Satin. And here, said Mully. But how can I find a target? It's black as the inside of a pig's belly. Where are they? Noy pointed north. Loose enough arrows, might be you'll find a few. At least you'll make them fretful. He looked around the ring of firelit faces. I need 2 bows and 2 spears to help me hold the tunnel if they break the gate. More than 10 stepped forward, and the smith picked his 4. John, you have the wall till I return. For a moment, John thought he had misheard. It had sounded as if Noy were leaving him in command. My lord? Lord, I'm a blacksmith. I said, the wall is yours.
He might be a blacksmith, but he's still a pretty good battle commander.
What's bard? Okay. There are older men, John wanted to say. Better men. I'm still as green as summer grass. I'm wounded, and I stand accused of desertion. His mouth was not bone dry. He managed. Afterward, it would seem to Jon Snow as if he dreamt that night. Side by side with the straw soldiers, longbows or crossbows clutched in half-frozen hands, his archers launched 100 flights of arrows against men they never saw. From time to time, a wildling arrow came flying back in answer. And lots of people pointed out here that this is once again George kind of breaking the rules, right, and telling you what in the future somebody's going to think and so forth.
Yeah.
Calling him the Smith when we already have gods in mind was a nice touch. Yeah, that does make sense. And actually, John kind of using the term father when he's looking for Ned was kind of interesting too, even though he worships the old gods. There's something about that that kind of sounds like God the Father. All right. Anyway, side by side with straw soldiers, longbows and crossbows clutched in half-frozen hands, his archers launched 100 flights of arrows against men they never saw. From time to time, a wildling arrow came flying back in answer. So I was kind of skeptical that would actually happen, but then I looked up, so I had to look up how high a typical bow and arrow could shoot. The site I found looked at a variety of bows. The weakest they looked at shooting over 400 yards straight up or over 1,200 feet. That was assuming a human capable of 50 pounds of force was firing the bow straight up. Giants could probably shoot considerably higher, I would imagine. So
yeah.
it does.
Now, there are 100-pound war bows.
Yeah, no, that was just a standard 50-pound bow.
Yeah.
They would shoot up more than 400 yards, more than 1,200 feet. So that's my point. Is yeah, actually there would be arrows reaching them if somebody angled at the right angle, and so forth.
Now that's taking it into consideration that I'm glad it was a 50-pound bow that you looked up because of the weapons technology north of the wall.
Right.
Probably wouldn't be an English longbow.
Yeah, but it's still 1,200 feet, so it's it's almost
right.
half. It's like
what you need to look at is
more than half.
If you're shooting from point A, and this is the top of the wall, how close to the wall? Where was that 1,200? Where would they have passed 700 feet? And what's the distance from the wall from where they would shoot?
Well, but you're lobbing them up and over and so forth, right? And so some of them are even coming down. So anyway, my point is there would be a few random arrows that would be very few, probably most of them.
It would all depend on how where the archer was.
Yeah, the percentage that have the ballistics angles right are probably not very good.
Yeah.
Anyway, he sent men to the smaller catapults and filled the air with jagged rocks the size of the giant's fist. The darkness swallowed them as a man might swallow a handful of nuts. And there's probably a joke to be had here about a man swallowing a handful of nuts. I'll leave that to your imagination. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
I'm guessing George has done the math already. Yeah, he probably had, but I was just curious.
He's far better learned on
Sure.
medieval warfare than I am by far.
Yep. Maps trumpeted in the gloom. Strange voices called out in stranger tongues, and Septon Celador prayed so loudly and drunkenly for the dawn to come that John was tempted to chuck him over the edge himself. They heard a man die at their feet, and saw another lurch burning through the woods, trampling down men and trees alike. The wind blew cold and cold. Hob rode up the chain with cups of onion broth, and Owen and Clyde served them to the archers where they stood. The gulped them down between arrows. Zaid took a place among them with her crossbow. Hours of repeated jars and shocks knocked something loose on the right-hand trebuchet, and its counterweight came crashing free, suddenly and catastrophically, wrenching the throwing arm sideways with a splintering crash. The left-hand trebuchet kept throwing, but the wildlings had quickly learned to shun the place where its loads were landing. We should have 20 trebuchets, not 2. And they should be mounted on sledges and turntables so we could move them. It was a futile thought. He might as well wish for another 1,000 men and maybe a dragon or 3. So some people confirmed that John is Rhaegar's son, but I think if he gets a dragon, it will be his old friend the ice dragon hidden at the wall.
Yep.
Donald Lloyd did not return, nor any of them who'd gone down with him to hold that black cold tunnel. The wall is mine, John reminded himself whenever he felt his strength flagging. He'd taken up a longbow himself, and his fingers felt crabbed and stiff, half frozen. His teeth was back as well, and his leg would tremble uncontrollably, sending a white-hot knife of pain right through him. One more arrow, and I'll rest, he told himself 100 times. Just one more. If his quiver was empty, one of the orphan moles would bring him another. One more quiver, and I'm done. Couldn't be long until the dawn. When morning came,
one more step.
Yep, which I think may have been John originally at the Frostbanks. When morning came, none of them quite realized it at first. The world was still dark. The black had turned to gray, and shapes were beginning to emerge, half seen from the gloom. John lowered his bow to stare at the massive, heavy clouds that covered the eastern sky. He could see a glow behind them. Perhaps he was only dreaming. He notched another arrow. Then the rising sun broke through to send pale lances of light across the battleground. John found himself holding his breath as he looked out over the half-mile swath of cleared land that lay between the wall and the edge of the forest. In half a night, they'd turned it into a wasteland of blackened grass, bubbling pitch, shattered stone, and corpses. The carcass of the burned mammoth was already drawing crows. There were giants dead on the ground as well, but behind them, someone moaned to his left, and he heard Seth and Celador say, "Mother, have mercy. Oh, Mother, have mercy." Beneath the trees were all the wildlings in the world, raiders and giants, orgs and skin changers, mountain men, salt sea sailors, ice river cannibals, cave dwellers with dyed faces, dog chariots from the frozen shore, horn-foot men with their souls like boiled leather, all the queer wild folk Mance had gathered to break the wall. "This is not your land," John wanted to shout at them. "There is no place for you here. Go away." "Sounds a bit like your dream, John, and probably just as wrong." He could hear Tormund Giantsbane laughing at that. "You know nothing, Jon Snow," Egret would have said. He flexed his sword hand, opening and closing the fingers, though he knew full well that swords would not come into it up here. He was chilled and feverish, and suddenly the weight of the longbow was too much. The battle with the Magnar had been nothing, he realized. The night fight less than nothing. Only a probe, a dagger in the dark to try and catch them unprepared. The real battle was only now beginning. But I guess that kind of could be tying Mance to the dagger, anyway. "I never knew there would be so many," Satin said. John had. He'd seen them before, but not like this, not drawn up in battle array. On the march, the wildling column had sprawled over long leaves like some enormous worm, but you never saw all of it at once. But now, "Here they come," someone said in a hoarse voice. Mammoths centered the wildling line and saw 100 more with giants on their backs punching balls and huge stone axes. More giants lived beside them, pushing along a tree trunk with great wooden wheels, its end sharpened to a point. A ram, he thought bleakly. If the gate still stood below, a few kisses from that thing would soon turn it into splinters. On either side of the giants came a wave of horsemen in boiled leather harness, with fire-hardened lances, massive running archers. Hundreds of foot with spears, slings, clubs, and leathern shields. The bone chariots from the frozen shore clattered forward on the flanks, bouncing over rocks and roots behind teams of huge white dogs. Fury of the wild, John thought as he listened to the skirl of skins. The dogs barking in vain, the mammoths trumpeting, the free folk whistling and screaming, the giants roaring in the old tongue. Their drums echoed off the ice like rolling thunder. He could feel the despair all around him. "There must be 100,000, Satin wailed. "How can we stop so many?" "The wall will stop them," John heard himself say. Kind of sounds like divine inspiration or intervention or frantic leaping.
Yeah, a little bit.
He turned and said it again, louder. "The wall will stop them. The wall defends itself." Hollow words, but he needed to say them almost as much as his brothers needed to hear them. Mance wants to unman us with his numbers. Does he think we're stupid? He was shouting now, his leg forgotten. Every man was listening. The chariots, the horsemen, all those fools on foot. What are they going to do to us up here? Any of you ever seen see a mammoth climb a wall? He laughed, and Pip and Owen and half a dozen more laughed with him. They're nothing. They're less use than our straw brothers here. They can't reach us. They can't hurt us. And they don't frighten us, do they? No, Gren shouted. They're down there, and we're up here, John said. And so long as we hold the gate, they cannot pass. They cannot pass. They were all shouting then, roaring his own words back at him, waving swords and longbows in the air as their cheeks flushed red. John saw Keggs standing there with a war horn slung beneath his arm. Brother, he told him, sound for battle. Grinning, Keggs lifted the horn to his lips and blew 2 long blasts that meant wildlings. Other horns took up the call until the wall itself seemed to shudder, and the echo of those great deep-throated moans drowned all other sound. And once again, you got this idea of the wall being rattled by war.
Yep. I didn't even catch that. I'm so glad you pointed it out.
Archers, John said when the horns had died away. You'll aim for the giants with that ram, every bloody one of you. Loose at my command, not before. The giants and the ram. I want arrows raining on them with every step, but we'll wait till they're in range. Any man who wastes an arrow will need to climb down and fetch it back. Do you hear me? I do, shouted Owen the Oath. I hear you, Lord Snow. John laughed like a drunk or a madman, and his men laughed with him. Jon Snow to go mad confirmed. Just kidding. The chariots and the racing horsemen on the flanks were well ahead of the center now, he saw. The wildlings had not crossed a third of the half mile yet, yet their battle line was dissolving. Load the trebuchet with caltrops, John said. Owen, Keggs, angle the catapults toward the center. Scorpions, load with fire spears and loose at my command. He pointed at the Molestown boys. You, and you, stand by with torches. The wildling archers shot as they advanced. They would dash forward, stop, loose, then run another 10 yards. There were so many that the air was constantly full of arrows, all falling woefully short. A waste, John thought.
We shall fight in the shade.
Their want of discipline is showing. The smaller horn and wood bows of the free folk were outranged by the great yew longbows of the Night's Watch. That goes to your point that they're actually probably quite a bit less than the 50-pound bows. They should still be most of that, probably able to get to the top of the wall.
Yeah.
And the wildlings were trying to shoot at them 700 feet above them. Let them shoot.
There's something else to that, though. If they're using more primitive arrowheads, such as flint and stone, versus the thinner metal, lighter arrowheads versus its equivalent in stone, would also disrupt.
Yeah, well, and I'm sure very, very few of them are actually ever making it during this entire battle, right? There's probably only very few arrows that are actually getting the right. Both. First off, we know that the wildlings have a variety of technologies, and some of them are taken from the south, and some of them are better than others.
Yeah, well, I'm sure the Thins have maybe even just brass arrowheads, some type of metal.
And we know that some smugglers do in fact do business with the wildlings and get them decent weapons and things. But it's a small percentage. But then you've got this variety of technologies there. You're going to have a few stray arrows that are definitely going to make it, and like the vast majority are not.
There you go.
Let them shoot, John said. Wait, hold. Their cloaks were flapping behind them. The wind is in our faces. It will cost us range. Wait. Closer. That kind of reminds me of Star Wars, just for some. Anyway, almost there. Anyway, the skins wailed, the drums thundered, the wildling arrows fluttered and fell. Draw! John lifted his own bow and pulled the arrow to his ear. Satin did the same, and Gren, Owen the Oath, Spare Boot, Blackjack Bulwer, Aaron and Emmerich. Zai hoisted her crossbow to her shoulder. John was watching the ram come on and on, the mammoths and giants lumbering forward on either side. They were so small he could have crushed them all in one hand. It seemed. If only my hand was big enough. Through the killing ground they came. 100 crows rose from the carcasses dead mammoth as the wildlings thundered past either side of him, closer and closer, until loose! The black arrows hissed downward like snakes on feathered wings. John did not wait to see where they struck. He reached for a second arrow as soon as the first left his bow. Notch! Draw! Loose! As soon as the arrow flew, he found another. Notch! Draw! Loose! Again, and then again. John shouted for the trebuchet and heard the creak and heavy thud as 100 spiked steel caltrops went spinning through the air. Catapults, he called. Scorpions! Bowmen! Loose at will! Wilding arrows were striking the wall now, 100 feet below them. A second giant spun and staggered. Notch! Draw! Loose! A mammoth veered into another beside it, spilling giants on the ground. Notch! Draw! Loose! The ram was down and done, he saw, the giants who pushed it dead or dying. Fire arrows, he shouted. I want that ram burning! The screams of wounded mammoths and the booming cries of giants mingled with the drums and pipes to make an awful music. Yet still his archers drew and loosed, as if they'd all gone as deaf as dead Dick Bullard. They might be the dregs of the order, but they were men of the Night's Watch, or near enough as made no matter. That's why they shall not pass. One of the mammoths was running berserk, smashing wildly with his trunk and crushing archers underfoot. John pulled back his bow once more and launched another arrow at the beast's shaggy back to urge him on. East and west, the flanks of the wildling host had reached the wall unopposed. The chariots drew in or turned while the horsemen milled aimlessly the booming cliff of ice. At the gate! A shout came. Spare boot, maybe. Mammoth at the gate! Fire! John barked. Gren! Pip! Gren thrust his bow aside, wrestled a barrel of oil onto its side, and rolled it to the edge of the wall, where Pip hammered out the plug that sealed it, stuffed in a twist of cloth, and set it alight with a torch. They shoved it over together. 100 feet below, it struck the wall and burst, filling the air with shattered stabs, burning oil. Gren was rolling a second barrel to the precipice by then. The kegs had one as well. Pip lit them both. Got him! Satin shouted, his head sticking out so far that John was certain he was about to fall. Got him! Got him! Got him! You could hear the roar of fire. The flaming giant lurched into view, stumbling and rolling on the ground. Then suddenly the mammoths were fleeing, running from the smoke, flames, and smashing into those behind them in their terror. Those went backward too, giants and wildlings behind them scrambling to get out of their way. In half a heartbeat, the whole center was collapsing. Horsemen on the flanks saw themselves being abandoned and decided to fall back as well. Not one so much as blooded. Even the chariots rumbled off, having done nothing but look fearsome and make a lot of noise. If they break hard, John Smith thought as he watched them reel away. The drums had all gone silent. How do you like that music, Vance? How do you like the taste of the Dornisham's wife? Or the taste of the son of a Dornish wife, anyway? See Triple Dragons, episodes 1 and 2. And people have speculated about this, but of course we believe that the Dornish wife symbolizes Ashara Dane and Arthur Dane and Dawn and John, essentially, right? And so to us, this makes a lot of sense. To most readers, it does not. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, just throwing the word Dorn in there with these people, it just, hey, deck of cards.
Hey, yeah.
No, you should put I'm very, very late, but you're forgiven. We appreciate you joining us.
Absolutely. Do we have anyone hurt? He asked. The bloody bugger's got my leg! Spareboot plucked the arrow out and waved it above his head. The wooden one! A ragged cheer went up. Zaid grabbed Owen by the hands, spun him around in a circle, and gave him a long, wet kiss right there for all to see. He tried to kiss John, too, but he held her by the shoulder and pushed her gently but firmly away. No, he said. I am done with kissing. Suddenly he was too weary to stand. His leg was agony from knee to groin. He fumbled for his crutch. Help me to the cage. Gren, you have the wall. Me? Said Gren. Him? Said Pip. It was hard to tell which of them was more horrified. But, Gren stammered, but what do I do if the wildlings attack again? Stop them, John told him. As they rode down in the cage, Pip took off his helmet and wiped his brow. Frozen sweat. Is there anything as disgusting as frozen sweat? He laughed. Gods, I don't think I've ever been so hungry. I could eat an Arox whole. I swear it. You think Hob will cook up bread for us? They saw John's face. His smile died. What's wrong? Is it your leg? My leg, John agreed. Even the words were an effort. Not the battle, though. We won the battle. Ask me when I've seen the gate, John said grimly. I want a fire, a hot meal, a warm bed, and something to make my legs stop hurting, he told himself. First, he had to check the tunnel and find what had become of Donald Noy. After the battle with the Fens, it had taken them almost a day to clear the ice and broken beams away from the inner gate. Spotted Peyton Keggs and some of the other builders had argued heatedly that they ought just leave the debris there, another obstacle for Mance. That would have meant abandoning the defense of the tunnel, though, and Noy was having none of it. With men in the murder holes and archers and spears behind each inner grate, a few determined brothers could hold off 100 times as many wildlings and flogged away with corpses. He did not mean to give Mance Raider free passage through the ice. So with pick and spade and ropes, they had moved the broken steps aside and dug back down to the gates. John waited by the cold iron bars while Pip went to Maester Aemon for the spare key. Surprisingly, the Maester himself returned with him and applied his full lantern. "Come see me when you're done," the old man told John while Pip was fumbling with the chains. "I need to change your dressing and apply a fresh poultice. And you will want some dream wine for the pain." John nodded weakly. The door swung open. Pip led them
He
in.
nodded to a blind man.
What's that?
He nodded to a blind man. It's the same as when I chat. I'm sitting there going like this, and nobody can see me.
The door swung open. Pip let them in, followed by Clytus and the lantern. This is all John could do to keep up with Maester Aemon. Ice pressed close around them, and he could feel the cold seeping into his bones, the weight of the wall above his head. It felt like walking down the gullet of an ice dragon. And people have actually referred to this weight of the wall thing as and I think I do talk about this actually. As we said last chapter, ice dragon references fall into a few categories. The wind at the wall is the breath of an ice dragon. I think that happens twice. The inside of the wall is the inside of an ice dragon, which I think happens twice, including right here. The ice dragon is hidden. Follow the ice, which I think might happen actually more than once as well. In fact, I'm pretty sure it does.
Follow the ice dragon, the stars. Yeah.
Follow the ice dragon to get to the wall, whether you are north or south, right? Because when Sam is north, he follows the ice dragon's tail. He follows the ice dragon's tail to get to the wall. So even, whether you're north of the wall, you follow the ice dragon. When you're south of the wall, you follow the ice dragon.
Yep.
And the ice dragon is Jon Snow's old friend.
Isn't the ice dragon the only common star formation north and south of the wall? The rest of them all have different names.
No, that could be. You may be right about that.
Yeah.
The show depicted a white dragon destroying the wall because they did not want to depict magic waking the last of these giants, the ice dragon from stone. The tunnel took a twist, and then of course people talk about this as the weight of the wall above his head, probably implying that his tomb will get buried by the collapse of the wall. Anyway.
Or he's responsible for the fall of the wall.
Yeah, I can see that too. Personally, I kind of think it's the Shireen sacrifice will be one of the main events, but most importantly, the horn has to be blown, right? Whether that's Euron blowing Sam's horn at Old Town somehow, or there has to be a horn.
If the theory is correct, and the crack in the horn is there purposely to cause a vibration, basically the singer breaking the wine glass with their voice. There's the vibrations that cause a vibration in the wall, and the vibration builds and builds and builds and crumbles.
Sure.
How close to the wall does it need to be for that vibration to begin? Or is it just something completely magical?
I think it's going to be some sort of magic ritual. I think there's going to be lots of different magic rituals going on at the same time, and it's going to be ambiguous which one caused it. But
yep, that sounds
but there's
right.
There's too many things that imply the wall from a horn, so that really has to be the one that George is really focused on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the horn that wakes the sleepers. I think you've said it, and I take it the same way. It wakes the sleepers of the ice dragon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it wakes the last of the giants from stone. The tunnel took a twist, and then another. Pip unlocked a second iron gate. They walked farther, turned again, and saw light ahead, faint and pale through the ice. "That's bad," John knew at once. "That's very bad." Then Pip said, "There's blood on the floor." The last 20 feet of the tunnel was where they'd fought and died. The outer door of studded oak had been hacked and broken, finally torn off its hinges, and one of the giants had crawled in through the splinters. The lantern bathed the grisly scene in a sullen, reddish light. Pip turned aside to retch. John found himself envying Maester Aemon's blindness. Noy and his men had been waiting within, behind a gate of heavy iron bars that the two pip had just unlocked. Two crossbows had gotten off a dozen quarrels as the giant struggled toward them. Then the spearmen must have come to the fore, stabbing through the bars. Still, the giant found the strength to reach through, twist the head off the spotted pate, seize the iron gate, and wrench the bars apart. Links of broken chain lay strewn across the floor. One giant, all this was the work of one giant. The ice dragon will use its freezing breath to melt the ice wall, just like D&D gave us. They guessed John's mother. Are they all dead? Mr. Aemon asked softly. Yes, Donald was the last. Noy's sword was sunk deep in the giant's throat, halfway to the hilt. The armor had always seemed such a big man to John, but locked in the giant's massive arms, it looked almost like a child. The giant crushed his spine. I don't know who died first. He took the lantern and moved forward for a better look. Mag, I am the last of the giants. He could feel the sadness there, but he had no time for sadness. It was Mag the Mighty, the king of the giants. You know nothing, Jon Snow. From John's second chapter in the same book, giants have no kings, no more than mammoths do, or snow bears, nor the great whales of the great sea. That was Magmar Tundode Weg, Mag the Mighty. You can kneel to him if you like. He won't mind. I know your kneeler's knees must be itching for want of some king to bend to. Watch out he don't step on you, though. Giants have bad eyes, and might be he wouldn't see some little crow all the way down there by his feet. Right? So
Yep.
he is not the king of the giants anyway. He needed sun then. It was too cold and dark inside the tunnel, and the stench of blood and death was suffocating. John gave the lantern back to Clytus, squeezed around the bodies and through the twisted bars, and walked toward the daylight to see what lay beyond the splintered door. The huge carcass of the dead mammoth partially blocked the way. One of the beast's tusks snagged his cloak and tore it as he edged past. 3 more giants lay outside, half buried beneath stone and slush and hardened pitch. He could see where the fire had melted the wall, where great sheets of ice had come sloughing off in the heat to shatter on the blackened ground. He looked up at where they'd come from. When you stand here, it seems immense, as if we're about to crush you. So, okay, that's where he did it. So this is the second time that it's implied that John getting crushed by the wall. So John's tomb might get buried, although I do not think he will actually be inside at the time. John went back inside to where the others waited. We need to repair the outer gate as best we can and then block up this section of the tunnel. Rubble, chunks of ice, anything. All the way to the second gate if we can. Sir Winton will need to take command. He's the last knight left, but he needs to move now. The giants will be back before we know it. We have to tell him. Tell him what you will, said Maester Aemon gently. He will smile, nod, and forget. 30 years ago, Sir Winton Stout came within a dozen votes of being Lord Commander. He would have made a fine one. 10 years ago, he would still have been capable. No longer. You know that as well as Donald did, John. It was true. You give the order then, John told the Maester. You have been on the wall your whole life. The men will follow you. You have to close the gate. I am a Maester chained and sworn. My order serves, John. We give counsel, not commands. So Emmett from the Nauticast podcast calls BS on this. When Sir Roderick leaves Winterfell, Luwin is obeyed in Winterfell, and Pycelle briefly has command when Cersei is taken by the High Sparrow. Maester Aemon and Donald Noy choose to put John in charge because they decide he is the man for the job.
Right.
Something
Maester is basically blowing smoke to make John step up,
Yep.
kill the boy so the man lives, basically.
Yep, absolutely. Someone must. You must lead. No. Yes, John. It need not be for long. Only until such time as the garrison returns. Donald shows you, with Corn half-hand before him. Lord Commander Mormont made you his steward. You are son of Winterfell, nephew of Benjen Stark. It must be you or no one. The wall is yours, Jon Snow. Arya is no one, so Arya for Lord Commander confirmed. And speaking of Arya joining the Night's Watch, up next, Storm 65, Arya 12. The little wolf witch wants to join the Night's Watch, does she?
Is that foreshadowing?
Yeah, it seems like probably not, but it kind of works.
Yeah. Was it like was it Danny Flint that joined the
Hmm.
Night Watch? Okay. And
Yeah,
don't
that's one of
don't the
the two.
Starks have Flint blood in them?
Yes, they do, and that's one of the two songs that blanking on the White Harbor. I'm blanking on the house, White Harbor.
Manderley?
Yeah, I'm blanking on Manderley. Anyway, Manderley
Ooh,
at the
Have we switched places? I
yep,
remember Danny
yep,
Flint, and I answered the name.
yeah,
What?
yeah, and Manderley specifically calls for two songs, right? He's laughing and calling for two songs. He's calling for Danny Flint, which is about an imposter, right?
Yeah.
He's calling for Danny Flint, and he's calling for the Rat King. He's specifically trying to say, A, we know what he's doing, and B, anyway, yeah. So yes, he is in fact
Speaking
serving.
of Lord Manderley, I know it's way off topic, but it popped in my head when you said his name. And this is a theory thing. What do you think of the theory that Lord Manderley and uh, Ilio Mompatis, whatever his name is, are both glamored to look bigger than they are?
Maybe I kind of doubt it in the case of, especially in the case of Manderley, but so it seems to be kind of the whole point of them is they're all supposed to look like walrus. The men are supposed to look like walruses, and the women are supposed to look like mermaids.
Right, but looking like and being like are two different things, and we're told how gracefully Lord Manderley is on his feet.
Yes,
Which not that when I was in junior
there
high,
is.
I pride myself on how fast I could run, and there was this I forget the guy's name. He was the size of a grown man in freaking eighth grade, and um, he was on the football team. This dude was huge, and it wasn't all muscle. I mean, but he challenged me to a race. I'm like, man, there's no way you can beat me. And I ended up beating him by like a freaking foot and a half. I'm like, I've never seen someone that large run that fast. And I never wanted to race him again because I didn't know if I could beat him again. I mean, dude was just, granted, I got him on the takeoff. I mean, I was smaller and faster and lighter. But the second he started, it's like a juggernaut, man, building up speed. He just kept, oh, man. I'm glad it was a 50-yard dash, not a 100-yard dash. Because I don't know if I'd have beat him on a 100-yard dash.
I think
But
you may be right that one of his kids might dance or something maybe at the wedding.
well, he dances with uh what is the Moose household uh you know what I'm talking about, the widow that Bran tries to marry Sir Roderick. Uh,
Um, okay.
did it start with H or something? Haywood or no? Was it Haywood? Hornwood?
I'm looking
Is it
through.
Hornwood? Hornwood. Yeah, Chris says
You
Hornwood.
think this is in class? Hmm. Anyway, Hornwood is what Chris is saying.
Yeah, yeah. I came there at the end of it, but yeah, I think he beat me. You're
So,
redacted, Chris. You're redacted.
right, Coach Lady Hornwood, but she made her excuses and took her leave. Yeah, I don't see that.
Okay.
Anyway,
But
but
yeah, I
certainly
mean,
Illyrio seems like he's a little. He's definitely light on his feet, and that may just be implying his Bravosi training. But
well, I mean, there's a rumor that Salvador San
yeah,
is
yeah,
some. I mean, if
it's an interesting. That's an interesting theory. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, you know me, I love a rabbit hole and I love a
sure,
theory. But I mean,
sure.
the which part of that theory is that when one of his necks get cut by the fray blade, that it's not actually cutting anything because it's
Okay.
not there. His neck's actually further back.
Could be. That makes
Sorry.
sense. That would make sense. So it would matter actually. Deck cards. He said it would be cool, but it doesn't really matter. But it actually would matter if he's not actually bloody. It's just the glamour. Yeah.
Right.
Anyway,
So you said manually, that popped in my head. And,
yeah, that's cool. I like it.
yeah, there's not
All
too
right.
many theories I don't like, but
Yeah, it's interesting. I kind of doubt it, but it's interesting.
it's interesting. But no. Like I said, I love a rabbit hole. Just the thought process that goes down it. Just it's
I think it was. I think it was. James Edward Martin that said that he
yeah.
thought it was hilarious when I would tweet out a theory and be like, here's the problem with this. Otherwise this is great.
Yeah, it's like anything becomes the word before the word but. It's horseshit.
He's like I love how Richard simultaneously criticizes and loves on this.
That would be awesome. That's great. But here's why it's not.
I think it's almost the other way around. I was like, even though this is like this is the problem with this thing, I really like this. I think it was I think that was the one that was summarizing um, um, all the Tully symbolism, um, like the black goat and stuff, and that was where I kind of realized that maybe there's a reason why he didn't hyphenate vamp hair because of damp, damp, or something like that, which is like uh, a vampire's child.
Of damper.
Well, no. It's Vulcan folklore. Anyway, the anyway, no, it's not important. All right, you haven't seen the show yet, so we can't really talk about the show.
Nope. Yep. As soon as we get off here, I'm watching it.
That's good.
Yay.
Yeah, that. Anyway, are we done?
Yeah. Yep. I'm good. So I appreciate everybody for joining us today. Chris, I'm glad you're back. I missed you immensely. I had given and a little, hopefully, just shout out everybody. He's not feeling that well, but he still went to work today. He felt so bad yesterday that he would not go see Deadpool and Wolverine with me. So now he's got to wait until the next weekend. Yep, half vampire. It's part mortal, part vampire, correct? It's like Blade, basically, right?
I can't remember what the creature is called. Vampire and human. So it's half vampire, half human. Yeah.
Yep. All right, but yeah, he didn't feel good yesterday. He did feel good this morning. He still went in. So he's got to wait till next weekend to go see Deadpool Wolverine. We're telling him to avoid YouTube as much as he can because even in the little stupid thumbnail, they'll give you all
Oh yeah.
the spoilers.
Yep. Lady to select vampire and a human made a baby. Yep.
Yep. Even though the vampires don't have running blood, and that's what it takes to, you know what I mean. All right. But all right, we'll see you Friday with Arya. I don't know the number, Arya.
Set it. That's Aria 12.
Yeah. And it's one of the books that her and Tyrion are up there, or is it just her that's really up there?
Yeah, close.
Oh, dang my back. I'm gonna get me a super recliner. When we went to see Deadpool Wolverine, I know I just said we're getting ready to leave, but the theater that we went to, the second half, the back half of the movie theater, had fully reclining seats that had a tray that would just slide in front of you to set your popcorn on. It had two little arrow buttons in the light on the arm of it. Well, I'm just reclining back like this, but I didn't realize with that little arrow button, there was a thing underneath the seat that comes out and up for you to put your legs on, and you're fully reclined watching this movie. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, this is awesome. Now I
Yeah.
know next time when I go take Chris to see it, we're going to the same movie theater, and I know to put my feet up while I watch the movie. But all right,
Yeah. Our
y'all be
AMC has
good.
said that for forever.
Yeah, you had to pay $2 extra for the seat,
Yeah, they
and
charge supremacy. Yeah. Spoiler: it's stabby.
we had to pay $2 extra for it, and we were the first ones there to see that 11 o'clock showing of it. But we had to tell them exactly which seats we wanted. They're expecting so many people. But all right, y'all be good. Take care. Thanks for Chris for making it back. Everybody, thank you for joining us, and y'all be good. Y'all be
We're gonna
bye, Richard. Bye, everybody.